Matt, welcome back to Hi Haley.
Well, thanks for having me again.
Well, you are our very first guest, so this is a big deal. We've had so many since you, so we're glad to have you back on. I'm not going to let you introduce yourself since we already know who you are, but I do have a question for you. Starting off, if you could eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Well, I would say pizza, but apparently all the other people you've asked said that. So I'm going to go ahead and say we'll do pork ribs. There's so
Pork
many different ways
ribs?
you can do them. Yep.
Thanks for being different. I just would never choose pizza, but I think most people like pizza a lot, and I just don't. So, all right. Well, I know today we're talking about power apps, which is exciting. So I think we're going to build one. So are you ready to go?
Yeah, let's do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a what's called a model-driven Power App. So in Power Apps, there's kind of two different ways to do it. One is the Canvas app, which is kind of what most people think of when they think of a Power App. But there's also the model-driven app, which is what I'm going to show today. And I think that's quite powerful and really easy to kind of get started with. So what we're going to do is we're going to create that app off of some tables that we have in Dataverse. You'll see I already have one built, but we're going to go off of another table that we're going to actually build today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start going through it by going through what's called solutions. And what you can think of solutions as is really kind of a package of all of your different elements that kind of go together. So they're really easy to move between your different environments, like moving from your development environment to the sandbox to production. This is a really good way to package those up. And what I find is it's really easy to kind of navigate around in it. So you don't have to see all of the other tables that you don't necessarily need right away. So you'll see here I've got one already built called TV show ratings. So we're going to make an app today that we can basically rate different TV shows. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my solution. And then what this is going to show on the left side is going to show all of the different elements that I have in this solution. So it's going to default to the all grouping, which is going to have all of the different elements in kind of one view. But if I wanted to view it just as tables, I could click on the tables or choices. So what we'll see here is that I've got 3 elements already in my solution. We've got 2 different choices here. These are really just kind of enumerated dropdowns. So I can basically have a defined list of like the genres or the streaming service, so I don't have to enter those in every time. They can be kind of a select dropdown for me. So maybe another time we'll talk about choices, but I've just got those already built out here. What I also have is a table already built, but we're going to build another table for the actual ratings themselves. So when we think of model-driven Power Apps, really what this means is that everything is kind of built off of what we build on the tables. So kind of the most important part of these apps are the actual tables themselves. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a new table. So I'm going to click New at the top, and then we're going to go to Table. And I'm just going to click the normal table here, not the one from external data. We're just going to do the normal one.
Okay.
And then what this is going to do, it's going to give me the ability to put in a name for that table. So we're going to do TV show rating. I'm going to put some spaces in there. So what we want to do on the display name, we don't want to put an S at the end of it because the system will automatically do it, add that S in the plural name. So display name, always just leave it as kind of the singular version, and the plural name, it'll take care of itself. Sometimes I've seen it get confused when you put an S at the end, or it's kind of a weird spelling
We'll do
when you
double
pluralize
S's.
it. So this one doesn't, but you'll see if I put 2 S's here, it does ES at the end. So it tries to be smart. Sometimes it doesn't get there. So what you can always do is you can override the plural name as well. Then we'll give it a description. And then we've got some other options here. We can do what's called enabling attachments. So if I want to attach different files or things like that to the actual table, we can enable that here, which makes that really easy. And then we can also change some of the other options here. We can change what the schema name. This is kind of the backend name of the actual table. I usually just leave it as is because it's usually pretty descriptive of what the table actually is, but just know you can always override that as well. The other thing, we can always add an image as well. So in different places in the actual Power App, sometimes it'll show an image. So if you want to have kind of an icon for that table, you can select one here, and then colors as well. Just looking through these. I think we're good on those settings there. But just what I want to highlight is you've got a bunch of different settings that you can basically make on a per table basis. I'm not going to go through all of these, but just know that you do have a lot of flexibility when creating tables. A
Can
lot of
you
these can be
reference this
changed.
table in another app or just the one you're creating it in?
So you can reference it in another app and another solution as well.
Okay.
But when you're moving between environments, if you've got a table that is referenced in your solution, it needs to be in that solution. Otherwise, it'll fail when you try to import it to the next environment. So the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to pick the primary column. It's always going to default to a column called name. I like to change it to ID because that's just how my brain works. But for a lot of people, just leaving it as name is fine.
Okay.
And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually change this from the ID being required. I'm going to change this to optional so that later in the process, I can have that field be automatically generated so I don't have to put in an ID each time. So then what we're going to do is we're going to click save. And then this is going to generate that table for me. All right, it's just thinking here. All right, so now what we have at the bottom is the actual table itself. So if I had any data in here, we'd be able to see it in this the view here. But what we're going to do is we're going to start adding some columns. So the first thing I'm going to do though is we're going to edit that ID, and we're going to make it so that this ID is automatically generated. So we're going to change the data type from single line of text. So we're going to change it to auto number, and then we'll make sure that it's set to optional as well. So then now whenever I create a new record in this table, it's going to automatically generate a number. And the way we have it set right now is that it's going to start at 1,000 and then go out to 4 digits. So we can always change this to be 8 digits and then start at maybe 2,000 instead. But we're just going to leave it as kind of the default for now. So we're going to go ahead and click save. All right, and then we're going to start adding some of our fields here. So first one we're going to add, we'll add the actual rating. So for this one, we'll pick a number field, and then we'll just do whole numbers. So we'll do 1 through 5. All right, and then what we'll want to do here is because we're rating it, we want it to be 1 through 5. We're going to set the minimums and maximums. So we'll say the minimum value we can put in is 0, and the maximum we can put in is 5. So that whenever I try to enter like a -1 or a 6, it'll basically give me an error saying, hey, you need to be between 0 and 5. So when I selected that that type, you'll see there's a bunch of different options here. There's text, number, you can do dates, choices as well, going back to kind of the genre and streaming service that we saw earlier. So we can always select different types here. But for this one, we're just going to keep it at rating for number. We'll click save, and we're going to see that it's going to add that field onto my table here. So if I click the show more, we're going to see that rating is now in here as well. That's well, really right. That's where we should see it. All right, so we're also going to want is maybe we'll do day watched. So we're going to add a date and time field. Well, let's just pick date only. And then we'll just leave all the defaults there. And then finally, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add that join table in so that we can basically see what the TV show would be related to my actual rating here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click plus again. And then this time in the data type, we're going to select lookup. And then this is going to give me the ability to look up related tables. So what you can do is you can just search in here. So we're just going to search for TV show. And then we're going to give it a name. And then go ahead and click OK. So now whenever we enter a TV show rating, we'll be able to enter that TV show as well so that it's basically related to that actual show. So what we also have on this table is you're going to see there's a bunch of kind of default fields, like the who created it, when was it created. And then the thing I want to point out, though, is that there should be an owner field. And this is basically what I'm going to use as to say who actually made that rating. So every table is going to have this. So we can just kind of leverage this, but you can always join in the user table if you wanted to have a different kind of owner field to specify who the actual user is that owned that record. But we're just going to kind of use the default for now. So as far as creating the fields go, that's all there is to it. It's really easy to create fields. But what we now need to do is we need to create the view for the list of the ratings and then the actual form for how to actually enter the rating. So in model-driven apps, all of these settings are basically driven off the table, kind of like I said earlier. So when we set up these tables, we need to make sure we're setting up how we're going to actually look at the table. So we'll start with a view, and we're going to see it's going to default 6 different views in here. So we'll just start with the active TV show ratings. This is kind of the default view. So we'll just click on that. And then this is going to show me what it would look like if I was to put this into a list page. So we're going to see it's always going to default to that primary key and the created on, which isn't super useful because remember that ID is a kind of system generated number. But if we wanted to make it useful, what we can do is we could add that TV show column in here. We'll add the owner column, the date watched, and what our actual rating is. And then what we can do is we can move these fields around as well. So if I want to put the rating there, we'll put TV show at the beginning. And then we'll put ID at the end. All right, so then that all looks good. So then what I can do is I can click Save and Publish, and this will make that view available. We actually build the app in a couple steps here. So while this is saving, some other things we can do is we can add different filters as well. So if I only want to see a certain TV show on this view, we could add a filter for that. We can change how it's sorted. It's pretty powerful what we can kind of add on this, this view here. For now, we'll just click back. And then we're going to go back to our TV show rating table. And then this time I'm going to go into the form. So what the form is basically the kind of default view when I was to create a new record. If I'm going to click into the details, we can see what that looks like. So we're going to click on the main form here. And again, we're going to see that it's going to default to that ID and the owner, similar to like we saw on the view. But if we want to add more fields in here, we can. So we'll add rating. We'll actually add who created it, when they created it, when it was watched, and then what the TV show is. So on these forms as well, we can add different tabs. We can add different tabs at the top. It's really flexible on how we kind of set this up. But to do that, we'll just create one tab here. So I'm going to click on the components section, and we're going to add, what do we want to do here? We're going to add a section at the bottom, and we're just going to put in our created by field. So you'll see it's all kind of drag and drop. Go, and I'm going to move the ID here as well. And then what we can do is we can change the section names as well. So for this one, let's just say these are system fields. And then we'll change this one to general info. We'll uncheck the hide label, so then we can see that here. So now whenever I go into the details, or if I create a new record, this is kind of the view that I see and the fields that I have available to play around with. So just like on the view, we're going to click Save and Publish. And then that form should be good to go as well. So with that, those are the 2 tables that we're going to need for our app here. And then the next step is actually going to be to create that app. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the apps section, and then I'm going to click new. And then we have the ability to create a new app. And we're going to see there are 3 different options here. So Canvas app is kind of what most people think of as PowerApps, which is kind of a free form. You can put anything you want in there. But the model-driven app is the one that's built off of the tables. And then you're also going to see there's one called Page here. What pages are embedded Canvas apps within a model-driven app. So if you wanted to have a small kind of free-form app within your model-driven app, you could create a page and embed it directly into your model-driven app, which maybe we'll talk about some other day. But we're just going to click the model-driven app here. And then it's going to ask me to give it a name. So we'll say TV show ratings. All right, and then we have our app. So basically, you're going to see there's a navigation pane on the left, and then in the center is where all the data is going to live. So right now it's blank, but what we can do is we can start adding some of our information. So what we'll do is we're going to select on navigation. Sorry, that's not what I wanted. We're going to click new, and then we're going to click data versus table. And then we're going to find those tables that we had created. So we'll do TV show first. And then we're going to see it's going to add in my list of TV shows.
All the important ones.
Yes. So I just finished Bridgerton last night, so we had to put it on the list here.
So good.
All right, so we're going to add a new page as well for the ratings. And then we're going to see we have basically the list of fields that we created in our view earlier. So on each of these, we're going to see that it's basically going to default to all the information from the table. But like any good app, we can update these so we can change the titles. So I can put a space in there. We can change the icon. So it always defaults to this weird paperclip with the settings. But we can add additional ones if we want. I don't have any loaded into this environment here, but usually I just download some icons from the internet and then add those in to make it easy for the users. All right, so then what we can do is we can also change the group names if we'd like. So instead of it saying new group, we could say you can show information. And then we can always add additional groupings as well and move these around. It's all drag and drop, so it's easy to move these all around. Right, so after we've clicked publish, what we can do is we can either we can click the play button and have it go into full screen, or we can play with the app directly in our viewer here and actually manipulate the data. So that's what I'm going to do in this case. So we'll just hide the bar on the right side. We'll just expand our app out so we can see a little bit more. But then what we can do is we can go into our different tables here. So I'm going to go to the TV show ratings, and then we're going to go ahead and click new and add a new rating. So we'll select our TV show. So this case here, we'll just say we'll do the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And then we're going to give it a rating. So I'm going to say 5 stars. And then we're going to pick the date that we actually watched it. Might be dating me a little bit, but I watched it in the 90s when it came out.
I can't believe you'd give it a 5.
Have you seen it?
It wasn't my cup of tea.
All right, well, you'll have to go enter your own rating in later. And we'll build a report someday where we can look at all the different ratings.
This would actually be cool.
So what we've got now is we got the owner. So it's going to default to me because I entered that record. It's got my rating, the date that we watched it, and then it's got all the system information at the bottom. So the actual ID of the rating, when it was created, who it was created by. So we can also do is we can add additional settings back on that table. So we could add another tab to basically show all of the ratings for a TV show as an example. So if I go back to my TV shows, we'll click on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. We're going to see we've got some information in here. If I click related, I can click TV show ratings, and it's going to show me all of the ratings that are associated with this TV show. So we'd have to add another view to look at it this way, to basically put who did the rating, what the actual values were. But it's kind of really powerful in that it automatically makes those connections for us. Now, usually I define those connections so that I can make sure I have the right names and everything like that. But it does do a lot of things automatically, which is really nice. And we can also make a chart for it as well. Again, you can make your own Power BI charts, embed them directly into the app, but there are some light capabilities directly out of the box without having to do anything by clicking that show chart. So that's really all there is to it. Really, it just builds off of our table data when we set up those tables in Dataverse. And this is a really easy way to kind of display that information to the users to make it really easy to kind of navigate around. Now, you can also add pretty much everything you have on the Power Platform into these apps. So like I said, we can embed a Canvas app using that page function. We can embed Power BI reports off of this data or even external data. We can do Power Automate flows. As an example of something that I use all the time is when a field changes on one of these tables or fields, we can run a Power Automate flow automatically. I'm going to have it do some actions like send an email to whoever the owner of the original record is, as an example. So really powerful in that way. And then what we'll see is that we made this in 10 minutes. So it's really quick, really easy, and a really good way to display kind of simple data to users.
Very customizable too.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thanks for walking us through that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, we'll have to get you back on and dive deeper into some of this. And I really
All
think we
right.
should do a TV app, like keep this going.
Okay. All right. Maybe we'll build on it next time.
There you go. All right. Thanks, Matt.
Yep.